I'm Chelsea. Welcome back to my channel where we talk books. Today I have an exciting video. I am going to be talking about my opinions, my experiences, what I thought about a couple of the popular booktok books that I have read. I'm gonna start off with a disclaimer. These are my opinions. If you are a fan of romance, good for you. I wish I was, because then I'd probably like a couple more of these books. I could potentially be bashing some of your favorite books, and I apologize for that. Because quite honestly, booktok books, I don't think are for me. I've read enough of them now that I know that the percentage of books that I find on booktok that I like are far less than the ones that I read and dislike. And I think maybe some of my problems with booktok, maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, is that in order for people to get views on their videos, I think, like how the algorithm works on TikTok, is that people are clicking because it's popular book already. Like these are like the books that I see on TikTok, it's like every single video is talking about the same book. I don't know how TikTok algorithms work. Yeah, I guess I'll get straight into it. Let's start with the good. Let's start with the few books that I've read that I got recommended to from booktok that I did actually like. First one was probably the first book that I read from a recommendation off of TikTok, booktok. And that is A Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I loved this book. And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot for somebody who does not like romance. But this book did something to me. I just have a little summary. It was a long time ago that I read this one. Maybe 2020? So I'm just gonna read off the synopsis. I'm gonna read off the little blurb. Achilles, the best of the Greeks, son of the cruel sea goddess Theseus, and the legendary king Peleus, is strong, swift, and beautiful, irresistible to all who meet him. Patroclus is an awkward young prince exiled from his homeland after an act of shocking violence. Brought together by chance, they forge an inseparable bond, despite risking the god's wrath. Yeah, I loved this one, and I think about it often. And some of the reasons I think that I loved this book was that I really like mythology and like mythical retellings. And this was like a retelling of the story of Achilles, you know, like Achilles' heel, Achilles, the Trojan War. You got all like the typical characters from those types of stories. And I have read Odysseus, the story of Odysseus, whatever, the Odyssey, as well as the Iliad. Unfortunately, I've read them more than once. Let's not get into it. It felt like torture. As beautiful as those stories are, once is enough for me. So that being said, I already had a bit of awareness of the story, as well as of the characters of the story, like all the Greek gods and everything, and the story of like the Trojan War. I was quite well versed on those things. So the story and the plot were not, and like the characters and the gods and those like sort of backstories were not confusing to me because I had a lot of like pre-knowledge going into it. This book, it made me feel things. I loved the like love story between the two characters, and I think I cried at the very last page. There was something at the very end there that like pulled on my heartstrings. I don't cry during romance books, like, ever. So that says something. Just like the writing was also, it took me to another place. I felt like I was there while they were like fighting the Trojan War. Like it felt like I was transported to that place. And I loved it. And during the time of COVID, I needed the escape that this book gave me. For somebody who hates romances, this one did it for me. And I don't know, I think it was we'll put it to the Greek mythology and the Greek gods, and that is why I connected with this one. Next up, a book that I read much more recently, and that is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I know that people are like polarized on. People are like, they love it or they hate it. I did really enjoy it. I thought it was a really interesting, like, story idea. The ironies of it were compelling. So it's essentially the story of a woman who steals a novel, an idea of a novel, from another author. And the author, what is her name? June is a white woman, and the story that she essentially steals is from a woman named Athena, and she is not white. She is of Asian descent, and the story that she steals is the story of it's an Asian story. It's like, it's a history of some kind of, it was the history of the Chinese laborers during World War I. So June essentially finds an interesting predicament where she can take this story and nobody would know about it, and she does. I thought it was an interesting commentary on the book world, the publishing industry, but I also understand where a lot of people are coming from in terms of the people who didn't like this book. Yeah, the main character of June was irritating. She was nauseating, she was annoying, and you were not rooting for her. You did not want her to win this race. You did not want her to, like, you know, get away scot-free with what she has done in this book. There was nothing redeeming about her character. She was very unlikable. And a lot of times when there's characters in books where the main protagonist is unlikable and has no redeeming qualities, people don't like the book because you want to like the person you're reading about. Like, I'm pretty sure this was first person. Let me just see. Yeah, this was first person through the eyes of June. So, you know, if you don't like the perspective of the person that it's coming from, I can see how you would not like the book, the story. Yeah, you were just kind of waiting for her downfall. And that she did have a downfall, and that was what was kind of satisfying for me, at least. But it did also feel like a one-sided critique of the publishing industry. It felt very much like the author really wrote herself into this book and that it was biased in some ways. And I think I read a couple of reviews that were pointing that out, and I get it. I see where that perspective is coming from, and I can see how it would irritate some people. But I mean, overall, I enjoyed the drama this book brought me, and I thought it was well written, and I just thought it was a really interesting commentary on a really important subject that because of this book, I'm sure is being brought to light a lot more, and people are talking a lot more about the diversity within the publishing world, and how different authors are treated. Yeah, it's important that we make, you know, have these discussions. And I think this book really brought out a lot of those discussions to the world. I liked 3 books, essentially. One of them was a 5-star. One of them, this one was like, this is like a 4-star. And then the other one was like a 3-star, 3.5. And that is Fourth Wing. I don't know that I really need to describe Fourth Wing for you, because I feel like everybody and their mother has read about it or heard about it or like read it. It's a story about dragons. It's a fantasy, a young girl, dragons. She goes off to like Hogwarts type situation and dragon school essentially. There's fights, there's a love. It's, you know, a catch-all essentially. Yeah, that's my description. That's my horrible description of that book. Sorry. But I feel like it doesn't really need much more than that. So yeah, that was essentially the biggest book of last year, was Fourth Wing. I read it at its peak of the peak of the hype. And I went into it not having many expectations, because fantasy is not my genre. I do not, the most fantasy book I've read is Harry Potter. So that'll tell you something. But I did appreciate that this book was very much like a fantasy for beginners. Like I could keep up. I could, there wasn't like too much world building. There weren't, the plot of like the fantasy plot was not like overwhelming. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too much information. It wasn't too much fantasy for someone who doesn't read it. A lot of people who do like fantasy probably did not like that about this book, I would assume, because it was very like, in terms of levels of fantasy, probably pretty low, because I understood it. So like I tried reading Dune, way over my head, way too much for me. So this one was manageable in terms of like beginner fantasy. Overall, I liked it enough to give it like 3 stars. What I didn't really like about it, was not my favorite part, was the romance. Are we surprised? No, not really. Like I wanted more. I'm surprised I'm even saying this, because again, fantasy is not my go-to, but I wanted more dragons. I wanted more fighting. I wanted more adventure, and I wanted way less of the like love triangle thing that they had going on between the characters. I feel like it's been done 100 times, and like love triangles are just blah, nah, you know, it's just boring. It's been done so many times. So I didn't love that. And I wanted more adventure and less of the lovey-dovey romance stuff. This was a, you know, fantasy romance, so I'm not surprised that the romance was a huge part of the plot. For me, I just wanted less of it. Next, let's get into the bad. The books that I really did not like, did not understand, don't get the hype. And we're gonna start off with a bang. And I'll start off with an apology. I'm so sorry that I did not get this book, that I did not like this book, that this is people's like die hard, they love this book, best book of the year for so many people, and I did not get it. I didn't get it. It was not for me, okay? And that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle something. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't like this one. I wanted to so much. but I didn't. It was a 2-star for me. Sorry. Gabrielle Zevin is the author. A novel of two friends, often in love but never lovers. So it's like the will they won't they type situation. And they come together as creative partners to create this like video game at a time when video games were like, I think it took place in the 90s, pretty sure. And they really get into the world of like video game design, something I know nothing about. I do not play video games. I don't know anything about them. Probably maybe some of the reason why I didn't connect with this book. But I don't think you need to like gaming and video games to like this book, but it was such a large part of the book that it's, I think, one of the reasons why I didn't connect to it. Anyway, so yeah, it's the story of their friendship and how they rose to fame with this like video game thing that they did, and then just sort of the aftermath of how that impacted their friendship throughout the years. There's a lot more that goes on in this book. There was a lot that happened here. I like, this is the one where I read the book when the hype was just building. Like, I tried to go into the bookstore and buy this book and it was not there. There was no book there because the book wasn't like big enough, I don't think, yet, that they were stocking enough of them. I don't know. I don't really know why the bookstore didn't have them, but they did not for like months. And that was like a big bookstore, like a chain. Anyway, so I did read it when the hype was just building. And this was probably my most disappointing book on this list, just because it sounded so, like, the concept sounded so interesting and so not like other booktok books that I was getting recommended, in terms of like the romance was not the plot. It was not like the main plot. It was a side plot of this book, which I appreciated, but still I could not connect with it. The characters of Sam and Sadie, their relationship was just so like consistently the same. It was like the same thing was happening over and over again throughout the book. They are friends, but they fight, and they get into a big fight, and then they don't want to be friends, and then they don't talk, and then they make this huge video game, and then they do it all over again. And then there's like, it just happens and happens and happens, and I was like, this is exhausting. It felt so repetitive. They were just like toxic friendship. It was a toxic friendship. They weren't very nice to each other a lot of the times. Like when they were in their bad times, it was bad. And the spite that went on, and like it just, I don't know, their relationship irked me. It annoyed me. And like the characters of Sam and Sadie felt quite one-dimensional to me. In particular, Sam had like zero growth. He felt like he didn't grow or develop at all. 400-page book, no growth. And that was annoying. It was like something could have, you know. Yeah, I just felt disconnected towards the plot and disconnected towards the characters throughout the whole thing. And it's a character-driven plot, and I think that's why I didn't like it. I just didn't connect. I didn't see anything wrong with the writing, really, aside from the fact that I felt it was a little repetitive. The writing was good, and the story concept was there. And yeah, it wasn't for me. I didn't get the hype, but you know, you can't win them all. Next up, we have one that I very recently read. I think like 3 weeks, within the last month or two. I'm not really surprised that I didn't like this book. And that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. I have read Book Lovers, as well as Beach Read, Hated beach read. Hated it, despised it, hated it. But Book Lovers I did like. I liked that one. So I had like meh feelings going into this book, and I had meh feelings coming out of this book. So Happy Place is about Harriet and Wren. I'm not sure how that was supposed to be pronounced, but we'll just go with it. They have been the perfect couple since they met in college. They also have like the same friend group. They go together like salt and pepper, honey and tea, lobster and rolls, except now for reasons they're still not discussing. They don't. They no longer go well together. They have broken up, and they have not told their friend group. Their friend group and them, they're super close. They're like, you know, super connected. They go to this cottage, one of their friends' cottages every summer for vacay. And this year they go, and they don't tell their friends that, you know, they're broken up yet. Their friends are getting married. It's supposed to be a happy time, yada, yada, yada. Whatever. For whatever reason, they don't tell their friends, and so they have to pretend that they're still in a relationship, even though they've been broken up for months. Yeah, that's essentially the story. I was not happy. I was not in a happy place reading this book. So there's that. It just didn't, like, it didn't do it for me. I didn't see the chemistry between Wren and Harriet. I didn't see any chemistry at all. Like, there was even, like, we do flashbacks to when they were together, and I still didn't, I was like, why are you together? It didn't, the characters didn't connect with themselves, it felt like. It was kind of weird. Again, these are my opinions, my thoughts, my processes. Yeah, their chemistry just wasn't there, and honestly, I would have preferred that they didn't stay together and that they just told their friends straight up, but then we wouldn't have had a book. So, you know, and then the whole reason that, you know, they weren't together when it came out, I did not like that, but yeah, it felt like such a stupid reason to be broken up. Anyway, yeah, I just could have cared less about their relationship. And that's what the whole story was. It was about their relationship with them, like, between the two characters as well as their friends. And, like, I just didn't care. The positives, like, I will say that Emily Henry knows what she is doing. She knows how to write a romance. She knows how to, like, the style and the prose and, like, the dialogue, and, like, she knows what to say to make her readers be like, oh, you know, like, I get why she's a super popular romance author. I get why her books are popular, and to that I say kudos to you, Emily. You know how to write for your genre. You know how to write a romance, and you should stick to it. This book was just not for me. The characters were not for me. Their story was not for me. Okay, next up. Batter up. Next up we got one that just confused me. And that was Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. It was so, okay. She is beautiful, affluent, self-involved, and mildly neurotic London socialite. Yes, she is. That's Magnolia. He is Britain's most photographed bad boy, who broke her heart. But Magnolia Parks and BJ Ballantyne are meant to be, and everyone knows it. No, they're not. Okay, let's not. No, okay. They're in the stars, just suspended in a strange kind of love that looks like hurting each other a lot. She dates other people to keep him at bay. He sleeps with other girls to get her back for it. That was a very good description blurb of what happens in this friggin' book. Holy, I just didn't get it, not at all. What is with BookTok and toxic relationships? Tell me, please, because I don't get it. The toxic relationships in this book was like bad. It was just, yeah. The toxicity in this book was, it was like other level bad. Yeah. I also, like, was it YA? I don't know, because there was like no spice. It was not a spicy book, but there was a lot of like talk about inappropriate sex things and a lot of bad language. Overall, I'm just confused as to who this book was, who the demographic is, because I don't think it's YA. But if it's not YA, what is it? Young new adults? Is that what that's called? But it even felt too childish for that. I don't know. It's like the reason I was interested in it was because people were saying that it was like a Gossip Girl in London. It was being compared to Blair and Chuck from Gossip Girl. That sort of relationship. That relationship had love. There were good things in that relationship. There was nothing good about Magnolia and BJ. There was nothing, it's a no. These two people should not be together, period. It was not a love story, star-crossed lovers type shit. Anyway, other thing I hated about it, the characters themselves. Magnolia Girl, if you said one more thing about what someone was wearing, some designer crap, I was gonna burn this book. But it was a library book, so that would have been unfortunate. But I was so tempted. She just went in on what people were wearing. Why? Why did you do that all the time? I hated it. I hated it so much. Why did I finish this book? I don't know, because I got so far into it and I was like, I gotta see it through, man. I don't DNF very often, and I should have DNF'd this one. Every freaking character was so vapid and entitled and self-involved, and if one more person had talked about how everybody had a private jet, I was gonna burn it a second time. Like, I don't know. It was just yikes. And then, you know, the romance, I don't even know where to begin with that one. You know, there was like some like fake dating tropes, which was okay. I didn't hate that. I just hated BJ and Magnolia, and that was what this whole book was. BJ was so horrible. Such a horrible boyfriend. And Magnolia just kept coming back for more, and I didn't get it. I didn't get the appeal. I didn't get why they were so good for each other. Like, just no. And, yeah, I just could have cared less about this entire thing. By the time the twist happened, I was done. I was like, all right, cool beans, next. Like, I was done. Thankfully, the book was pretty much done by the time the twist was revealed. And then I finished it only to learn that there were like 3 more books about these people. And I was like, why? No. So that was my overall, the whole experience was an absolute shit show. I do not recommend this book to anyone. If this is your favorite book, I'm so sorry. I just didn't get it. My apologies. But, it was just bad. Last book from TikTok, BookTok, BookTube, that has been recommended so many times, and I read it when it was at the peak of its hype. The hype is coming back because of BookTok. And to that I say, Please stop. Oh, okay, let's just get into it. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by Schwab's V.E. Schwab. Yeah. What is it about? France, 1914. In a moment of desperation, a young woman, Addie LaRue, makes a bargain to live forever and is cursed to be forgotten by everyone she meets. Thus begins the extraordinary, oh my god, it was not Thus begins the extraordinary life of Addie LaRue and a dazzling adventure that will play out across centuries. Yada, yada, yada. She will leave her mark on the world. But everything changes after nearly 300 years, she stumbles across a young man in a bookstore who miraculously remembers her. That's it. This... I know it's well loved, but not by me. This felt very like, boo-hoo me, poor me, I hate my life, so I'm gonna make a deal with the devil to live forever because that's gonna solve all my problems. I'll be able to travel the world forever and never age, and have all the pretty men I want, and be the center of attention, and what do you know? You shouldn't make a deal with the devil because the devil sucks and will screw you over, like everybody knows, but apparently not Addie because she's stupid. She makes so many stupid decisions. And yeah, I mean, I liked the writing. There's a positive. I liked the writing, but it dragged a bit. And it felt so repetitive. The woman lived 300 years and she was reliving the same freaking day, essentially. That's how it felt. She traveled, she met people who forgot her instantly because that's part of the curse, and she was really sad about it and lonely. That was it. What I really disliked, if I can just say my piece. Sorry that if you liked this one. What I disliked was there was an inconsistency. It was like, so the curse was that she was to be forgotten instantly the second that she left the room, or the second that they like fell asleep. The next day she'd be forgotten. Cool. That's a curse. That would suck. Pretty lonely. However, there was like an inconsistency slash a plot hole slash, I'm pretty sure it was a purposeful hole. I don't know. It was very purposeful because it was part of the whole plot. But it felt stupid to me. Felt inconsistent. She constantly talks about how she's meeting all these, like, she's meeting artists and she's meeting musicians and she's meeting actors and directors and all these famous people, and they forget her, yet miraculously they write sonnets about her. They paint beautiful paintings and write beautiful songs about this woman that is cursed to be forgotten, yet she is somehow their muse. What? Doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of the curse? Like, they're forgetting about her, but then they think she's a dream, or I don't know what, and they still, like, she still has, like, sculptures that are her and paintings with famous artists. I didn't get it. I didn't like it, and it annoyed the hell out of me. It felt wrong. So I was very confused by that, and it ruined the whole idea of it being a curse. But looking at the Goodreads reviews, I missed something. I missed the plot. Something went awry. something got lost for me. Because everybody loved it but me. That's it. That is my whole thing with the book talk stuff. I think I'm pretty much done with book talk recommendations. My most recent book talk recommendation was Magnolia Parks, and you can tell from how I was talking about it how much I despised it. So I'm done with book talk. No more for me. Our relationship is in the toilet. Thank you so much for watching. I am so sorry if I absolutely, you know, beat on your favorite book. Much apologize. Please don't hate me for it. And I hope that you enjoyed. And if you did, maybe give me a like and a subscribe. Again, much apologies. And until next time, bye.